talk about the dictatorship of the Madabio regime. We're not going to talk about the collapse of the economy. We're not going to talk about the violation of human rights. We're not going to talk about violence. Now, Saloon today, we avoid for talk about the role of parliament and the role of parliamentarians, both in the opposition and in the ruling party, in the creation of the climate of repression as alone, how they're responsible for that. We're not going to talk about the lack of justice, the lack of the violation of the rule of law, the absence of separation of powers by thinking that Mother and I hold all the judges there, all the parliamentarians, put in our pocket. And we think, say, because we live under a repressive president, dictator, monster, devil, with a mother abuse. So everybody in the country, they're afraid. They're afraid for their lives, and they're afraid for their family, their lives. And some of them, they like you now, and they talk, say, what you make Chernoh, and they talk, not because you're not in the country. No, not because some of we, within Naya, we they see through the machinations of these politicians. They are not under risk. I will tell you now, members of parliament, the judges, and many of these individuals who have led you to believe that they are powerless, they are faced with a monster who is not upholding the law, and then they live in a salon with their families, they are part of the problem. They are not victims of the problem. They are orchestrators of the problem, are protagonists of the problem, the protagonists of the crisis. This is not the thing we will not able for find difficult to talk about. Part of the reason is because many of these people are your party members, party leaders, party benefactors. You don't, when you get a bearing, you go to the honorable, you take 1 million, you only give you, the honorable, you go. So even if you are confronted with the danger that the activities and action of that honorable member of parliament is causing to you, your family, the country, you find it difficult to talk about it because at one point or another, you don't get school fees problem for your picking, you don't go there, they don't take pinch small and the money in the teeth, then give you. Take small and the money we're supposed to provide the common good for everybody and give you. So today, I want to talk about what I call institutional dilemma. How we institutions don't enter, by their own making, they don't enter into a crisis of their own, of where they're able to solve. You know, they don't enter into a triangle of a dilemma, and part of that, a triangle of opportunism, where parliament, members of parliament in the opposition and the ruling party, together with Madabio, decide for make a bargain against the interest of the public, the national interest. And since we discover that and begin talk about them and bring them to light, June to now, the country has not been stable. The institutions have not been functioning. And a lot of people now, crowds of people across government, when we say government, we're talking about now the three arms of government, both the executive that is made up of SLPP people like Madabio and the people that we don't appoint, and even including APC people, because I know the APC people are now where they work for Madabio. The one that we declare themselves openly, and the one that we hide, we either in the inside parliament or outside of parliament, where they help this process. What to make this not two way don't they happen, but what to make this one more obvious now because we don't determine so they bring everybody like I'm telling at the Luma. So now we'll see them and know, say that so politics they operate in a saloon. That these politicians, in as much as they can claim, say that they for our interest, they are actually scheming and working overnight and over time against the national interest. So I want to spend some time today as part of the ongoing conversation on state capture for highlight what we call the apex of the crisis, which is the dilemma that these institutions have entered into the process of denying Sierra Leoneans their right to, you know, the kind of government that they want, the quality of our democracy. So I will take a break now. Then I can now. I hope for spend a few minutes today for talk about this because I know say this night soccer season, football season, the World Cup is already we already watch the World Cup. I usually do not pay attention to football that much. I used to be a very ardent fan of football, as I call it in America, soccer, if you like. But that was back in the day when I've been there, primary school to high school. But over time, I got, I lost interest because of the noise attached to it. But I enjoy. So I do not actually watch the Premier Leagues or the European leagues per se, but I make sure that anybody who know me knows, say I know they miss the country competitions, the continental competitions. And by that I mean the African Nations Cup, the European Nations Cup, the Copa America and all of this, because I like seeing countries competing. In a way, it plays into some kind of nationalism. They tell you about what it means for support a country, how struggling countries, they fight for the name of their countries, people, they cry because their country lost. It speaks to a spirit of nationalism, what makes people identify with a country. It's both its culture, its politics, its economics, a range of issues. So football as a cultural activity is one of those um, activities to which people express their patriotism, their attachment, and their loyalty to a country. That's what you see in this competition. So one of the reasons we make me can watch them. I can watch the World Cup. I can watch the African Nations Cup because you see citizens struggling and defending and supporting their countries. They use energy and brain and skill and tactics and technique for put their country forward and raise their countries' flags. So I like to see that. And this is not the season where we get right now. Football, the global competition of world football, the World Cup, every country that is successful going there is representing, to the extent that now we say, oh, we support this country because they're from West Africa. We support this country because now they're from Africa. We support this country because now they are underdogs. They are from, so all kinds of politics and definition of nationalism, patriotism, Pan-Africanism, and all of these ideas, they manifest themselves without we knowing. So this tells you that in everything that is world here, there has to be an idea, an ideology. You don't understand? A worldview, how you see yourself in the world, your role in the world, and what contribution you want to make, both to humanity, to the world, and to young people. That is what football, in my own thinking, is showing. It's a way of showing how individuals seek to contribute to society, to their countries, their show of good citizenship, their loyalty to their countries, and things like that. So you listen to the commentary, you hear about this thing, the struggle, which country to represent. Some people, you get, for example, when Cameroon and Switzerland were having a match, the first goal that was scored by Switzerland against Cameroon was scored by a Cameroonian or somebody, an African, a black man born in, who is carrying citizenship of Switzerland. So we scored the ball. Usually when footballers scored, then they run all around the ball. He was taught some kind of, when you look the game, this young man scored. But he's stiff, unable for celebrate self because, he's caught between a dilemma. Now he don't score against in country because his parents or in Papana from Cameroon. Then now he play against Cameroon. Under normal circumstances, this individual will have been playing for Cameroon. The whole set of politics around it. But you see the dilemma that this footballer was caught in. Score is that it's not enable move and company and come and celebrate with, and that is unusual. Sometimes when people score and they run around the field, some they pull them closer. So we see how Cameroon Abubakar did yesterday. So looking at these kinds of things, it tells about the importance of countries, the importance of citizenship, the reason why we need good governments. Cameroon, for example, has been under dictatorship for many years, one of the oldest dictators, and Paul Biya travel around the world, ship money, going to Switzerland. When I see this video, when they pass around, how Cameroonians are even attacking their officials outside of Cameroon because they are dissatisfied with the nature of government. Maybe if they can get a good government, quality government, where they encourage citizens to contribute, you cannot have somebody of Cameroonian descent born outside of Cameroon bringing glory to Switzerland as opposed to Cameroon, help for bring down the flag of Cameroon in exchange for another country. So when governments frustrate citizens out of their country, they are basically forcing brain drain. They drive the skills out. Those skills could be skills for advanced sport, with advanced education, with advanced agriculture, with advanced economy. In all aspects of the country, they lost. So this is what you also see when you look at these global competitions, people competing, showing talents at the global stage. That's what you see. We have our kids who will identify with America, but they will not identify with Sierra Leone. Why? Because some of us have been forced out of the country by the terrible nature of our governments. They are woeful performance in economics, in education, in everything. If you want to get better education, you got to move out. You want to get higher education, you got to move out of the country. You can't, you get better education, you want to go back, you cannot go back because the country is bad off. It's worse off, the economy, all of these things. Until we're able to get governments right, we will just admire other countries. We will be building citizens with their talents and their knowledge and their skills for benefit other countries. This is why some of us are concerned. We want to have a situation where our kids will be able to contribute to our own motherland, to our own countries, and feel proud about it. Not as a charity case, but as a showcase of human talent. When you look at the World Cup, the greater majority of the excellent footballers, the greater majority of them are from Africa or of African descent. But you have fewer African countries participating in the competition. But the bulk of the players, the way you look, the majority of them, the most excellent ones who have scored the most excellent goals, if you look, they are basically people whose parents are from Africa or whose origin is from Africa. But look at the African environment today, including Sierra Leone. So these are the reason why governments have to be gotten right, and we cannot get government rights if we do not get institutions right. And it's different to just say we are for institutions. So that kind of conversation, this is why I decided to talk about institutional dilemma. How did we get to a point where our institutions have lost credibility? How the politicians did not destroy the institutions they are, and why it's important for us to identify these developments. And I want to talk about the judiciary and parliament for one specific reason, just simple example. Few days ago, we've been seeing them say they threaten parliament. Why? They say Mother Bill want for impose proportional representation on the country, for change the nature of the election. In my last discussion, I tell them, I say, that is not true. The proportional representation is to the benefit of members of parliament. It's not to the benefit of the presidency. It has nothing to do with presidential election. It has everything to do with the parliamentary election, parliamentary representation, the legislative assembly. That's what proportional representation, regardless of whatever kind you use, whether in a district block or any kind of percentage, it has to do with how parties are represented in the assembly, in parliament, in the legislative assembly, like that. So if Mother Bill want for imposed proportional representation, we understand, say, when members of parliament, they don't work together with the ruling party for writing into the new law, for change the electoral law, and now for repeat what I talked last week. So this week, before we come to this Saturday, this week where they done so, we see lawyers in the opposition, APC lawyers then, and I talk about JFK, Joseph Kamara, Ade Macaulay, Wara Seri Kamal, and Abdullahi Conte. They say they don't take, they don't go to the Supreme Court for seek an interpretation regarding the unconstitutionality of the president's proclamation. Basically, then they say they don't go case in a court against proportional representation. It's a continuation of the same facade what we see in a parliament. It's meaningless. But not just the meaningless, the fruitless nature of the action. Now, why they decide to operate that way? Now I want to talk about for telling the dilemma. Why? Because they are in a dilemma. They don't know how to get out of this. Because we don't highlight so much the corruption in parliament and the lack of the honesty of the parliamentarians in the opposition and how they don't sell out the democracy and help Mother Bill for build a dictatorial landscape. So parliamentarians they feel the need, say, they're not going to help Mother Bill again if they're not restoring their own credibility, because the credibility of members of parliament and the credibility of parliament as an institution don't become so exposed that people don't know they're useless institutions. They know the function again. Useless in this case, I mean they are not of good use. They are not serving the purposes for which they are supposed to exist when I set them for. Parliament is not functional. So because it is functional, it means it's of no use. So hence the word useless. So that I try to say. So in this case, parliament and members of parliament, their legitimacy is zero now because people don't see the level of complicity. So for make the agreement, for make parliamentarians now able to help Mother Bill for carry out his second term, they need first and foremost for be seen as credible people. And one way they want to build that credibility now for tell the Sierra Leoneans, the fool Sierra Leoneans, and say that they're under risk and they're under attack, that their life they are at risk. In fact, they want to pass law. If they're not agree, they bulldoze and they bring police in the parliament. They try to attack them. In fact, they don't declare. They lie you and say they don't arrest 3 parliamentarians there. Some of the parliamentarians they call people, they all say they're into hiding. They're into hiding. Now what do we see? They say police don't invite them. Next thing we hear is Abbas Bundu say he don't give a ruling. In fact, he don't ban 3 members of parliament for enjoy them benefit. So members of parliament say, well, now see now, if them are don't sell out, then they're not going to ban them, so no going to serve them. So it is fake. But I want to analyze that particular thing for telling why then they behave that way. For giving the impression say they are under attack. For giving the impression say they are threatened, their life has been threatened. Remember, Parliament get less than 6 months now for make Parliament close. The life of this Parliament is done. It's done. Whether they threaten a Parliament now, then do any of that thing, there's nothing again that the members of Parliament can do. Anything again with the benefit of the country. What they are fighting for is how to regain their credibility and make them go back in the Parliament for the next 5 years. That's what they are fighting for. They are not fighting to protect the Constitution. They are not fighting to protect our democracy. They are not fighting for good governance. They are fighting to protect their own interests now, to save their own credibility, which they have sold out. Okay, that's one. So the next thing again, we don't show say the judiciary is nothing but an institution that has been used progressively by Madabio in association with your own sellout opposition members in Parliament for muzzle the real opposition, for bring cases against people that win a real opposition, accuse them of corruption, try to hold them, seize properties and all of that, when actually there has been more massive stealing of public money under Madabio that parliamentarians in the opposition have not raised an issue about. So now, by opposition members of the APC, then lawyers and take case na court, say they want the Supreme Court for interpret whether a rule against proportional representation, where proportional representation are for them the parliamentarian really. Now, it's also an effort to rescue the image of the judiciary. Now, an effort for making them save the judges, save the judiciary from the supposed credibility crisis where the judiciary does suffer from. So that's what I call the dilemma. Madabio in credibility and in claim for fight corruption, that we don't show in a fake. So the executive branch of government has no credibility, both within the country and in the eyes of the international community. We don't show say the executive, the president, and the rest of the ministers, they've just been running a facade. They are not committed to fighting corruption. They are not committed to the rule of law and everything. Now, we also show say this situation exists because Parliament aid and abet that corruption. Then we also show say the judiciary has not been working correctly, other than being used as a tool by these two institutions, the Parliament and the executive branch, for muzzle opposition at the country and stifle free speech. Now, all these institutions again, and the people that were there inside they fought before this government in time, before the election they come, for making them save their own credibility. This is what I call the dilemma. And it's a difficult thing for them to do, because if you not been don't do anything good in the last 4 years, 6 months, now you want for sure we say you credible, you correct, you don't stand up for the Constitution. So this is what I want to talk about. I want to analyze them and show and contrast these developments and show now why both the court action taken by the APC lawyers to the Supreme Court, if you say it's really even an action, and the supposed fight in the Parliament and Abbas Bundu in so-called decision are the same. They get same purpose. The purpose here is to rescue the opposition in Parliament, their image, their credibility crisis, and also rescue the judiciary, and at the expense also of the opposition and the country. That's what I want to talk about. I'm not going to spend more time on this discussion. I intend for continuum, but why I decided for even broadcast early, because I realized there's a major tournament coming up. There is a major game coming up. Argentina will be having another game, so myself one for watch them. And I know say plenty of people will watch we again, get for watch them. So I'll take a small break. I'll come back and then throw some light on this. First, I will discuss how Parliament and the fight in Parliament and about Bundu decision not just joke. I will tell you now what in parliamentarians they don't do. We make that one. We know the crime, the sin, the actual sins that parliaments have committed. I will remind you now of that. Then after that, I will come and talk about again how the action taken by JFK, Abdullahi Conte, and the other APC lawyer then are just same joke as what is happening in Parliament. If they really want to take action, what are the issues that they will have taken to court? And when they for don't go court? And why that action taken to court is not to the benefit of the country, it's to the benefit of Madabio in the end. I will show that. They have a right to argue otherwise. I also have the responsibility to explain how I see things. And I don't blame me why I did talk about this, because my every citizen has a right and a responsibility for assess the activities that are happening in the country. And at my own vantage point, I am able to see some of these things or see through some of these things. So make an always time. I will come back just now, take a small break. Do you want to share the link, invite more people? I know this is a busy day, all of us. I just want to thank those who are already here and hoping that we could also make this conversation available on audio and share them on WhatsApp for people who are busy with other activities will have the opportunity of hearing the conversation, and maybe they can have their own input or their own responses to what we're saying, or learn from it as well. Okay, so make us if I read some of the comments them small and see who is here. I see Muhammad Ali. Hello, sir. Alex Smith, Media House, very dedicated follower of our conversations. Thank you for being that dedicated. We want to tell you all thank you and recognize the continuous dedication of we friends. Nepotism is a serious challenge facing this country. Yes, that's a correct thing. Teresa Benjamin Williams, Chernoh Bah, may Allah bless you, sir. Ibrahim Sisse, things are getting difficult for the country, and I'm afraid for some miscalculation from our politicians, we are in the same unfortunate situation from our recent past. Definitely, Mr. I agree. Mr. Bah, the Biden administration will be hosting USA Africa Summit. Hopefully, MADABIO is not invited, or can you comment on it? Of course, so much is, yes, global African leaders. At this point, I think a lot of people are aware about the situation in Sierra Leone, and it's a concern to many people. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so make we not spend more time. I know say plenty of people get for wait for the game that is coming up. This week we passed, so if I remember, there was a supposed fight, what I call a drama that happened in Parliament. What was the drama about? Members of Parliament in the opposition say they have brought in whether it's legal, but the fact of the matter, they believe MADABIO and the SLPP are trying to impose proportional representation on the country. Basically, they want to change the electoral system from a constituency-based election to a proportional system of representation. Proportional system of representation would already explain to now where people vote for the party, and the party decide whether from the district or who should represent the party. Now, you imagine the APC is getting into a convention. The party's executive was dismantled by a court, Fisher, and all of the lawyers they are with the represent Funasu, where they go and say that they fight for Nasu. They are friends with Fisher. In fact, now the same one we talk say Fisher not supposed for qualify for practice law. That's alone. The question is his qualification to practice law. And at the same Fisher, he not only serve when the SLPP can not only serve as a prosecutor for prosecute Herbert George Williams and all these other APC politicians, including Paulo Conte, but they moved him to becoming a judge. And the capacity as a judge, he dismantled the extant executive of the APC and then appointed a caretaker committee, which was largely made up of members of parliament appointed by your parliamentary leader. So we don't raise the question in the past if Cherikoko was actually committed to democracy in the country, was committed to the APC, and even they against the use of state institutions for destroy democracy, he would not have accepted the court's decision for making a major stakeholder of the interim governance transition committee. And since its constitution, since they appoint that committee, the APC entered into more crisis, administrative crisis, to the extent that the party was not only paralyzed, the party became unable to defend the interest of its own members, the interest of the sector of the population that the country will represent. and that means they not even deploy people there for monitor the registration process. The party has no way of finding out whether its members and supporters or people who want to vote for them are able to register and also vote, even to the extent where 250,000 people, more than that, have been deleted from the provisional voters register. The party cannot take action. He, as the parliamentary leader, cannot take action in defense of the party's interest. This is not anybody who does not want to recognize this as an indication of a compromised politician will be doing disservice. And this is not alone. The entire members of parliament, that the same one decide for changing the election law of 2012, for bringing a public election law this year, 2022, and they're not been telling about the content of the law. We take credit for bringing that to light and showing how members of parliament and the presidency, we are working to give Madabio a second term. We say one way they want for doing for suppress voters, for make sure voters in areas where the opposition has a strong presence, especially in Western area, in Freetown, in the Northwest region, in the North and other parts of the country, and believe, say, if people are registered for voting, will likely vote against Madabio, then prevent them from voting. Now, registration term wahala. Problem, we fight, take people that register. Even when they announce registration, people will register, we fight, and register by force through their own determination. Then pictures are not come. Then some of the names they're not complete. The data is basically incomplete. After all that fight, so for make people register. For the first time, we never get this trouble for register. The first time, the electoral commission, the big people, when I can't register. Now people then turn up for register through we own effort for educate people about registration. The electoral commission register people and then produce a provisional register. The people who register, the name they're not inside the register. And then people they are now with the name not in the register, then get registration slip. Say they register. ECSL not show we say then people are the name not there because they register 2 times, because if don't print two, they accuse people of double registration. In the register that has been exhibited, no side of the way somebody talk say, I see my name come 2 times or 3 times. What do people say, I register but my name not come? Or my name come, or I see name with you but my name, my picture not there. Because when you see a name and you not see picture, you not go say that you name that. Or my picture come but me not to my name, then put that the picture. So basically, we have a corrupted provisional voters register. Even the ECSL don't accept, say, the provisional register is problematic. Their argument is they use 2 systems. They say they get voters the way they named in at the NCRA, then get the one the way at the ECSL, the NEC registration. And we've been talking, say, ECSL and NCRA not for be together. Even the members of parliament tell them when I say they don't make law, they don't pull that in the law. You end up in a lie. So if members of parliament can lie to you about the content of a law, which they said does not have NIN, does not have NCRA, does not have proportional representation, then lie about that. How would I believe them say when say they don't fight in the parliament, they fight for protect the constitution and protect democracy? For helping Madabio for pass a law, we will prevent people and for register, what in parliamentarian will get out of day? Then self will get access to parliament by making sure they bring in a proportional representation system where smaller parties and the current members of parliament will be able to elect themselves to parliament through a threshold that will allow possibly Council will get 11% or thereabout for going to parliament. In the case of the NGC, a benefit to them. In fact, during the debate, Honorable Mario of the NGC was expressed support for the proportional representation. The NGC has no pretense about the fact say that they appreciate proportional representation. They want that. So what's this hypocrisy on the part of members of parliament for saying they fight against proportional representation? So they fight against proportional representation, make we even say proportional representation is being imposed. How you go guarantee people there for vote? How you, regardless of the kind of system that you want to use in an election, it is of no importance if people are supposed to vote not get the opportunity and the right for vote. If you don't get voters for register, you don't get the correct voters register, even if in a constituency election, not to proportional representation, which guarantee you guys say you members them, people there for vote, they go able for vote. Now you supporters, majority of the APC supporters in Freetown or citizens of Sierra Leone in Freetown and other parts of the country that are believed to be APC strongholds or opposition strongholds have problem with their right to vote. They have registered, they have not found their names in the register. Some of them have their names deleted. Some of them, the biometric data are not complete. So which one the members of parliament fight for? Forget a credible voters register or for fight for the kind of electoral system. Now make we say we not even an electoral, not even a proportional representation. How the 250,000 voters, more than 250,000 voters, will not remove from the register, how they go for vote if you be yourself una kill proportional representation? We are going to court against proportional representation, but we are not going to court for making people and get the right for register. We are not going to go ECSL in court because ECSL don't thief over $10 million who don't provide the evidence. We are not take action for say we are go halt ECSL the registration, then they register people in half and half. The APC lawyer there, they get plenty lawyers in IP, they get past 50 lawyers, each one of them. In fact, what did APC go to court for? Chernoh Bah in your own lawyer way appoint, where they appoint for represent them at the interim governance transition committee, Alpha Jallo, Alpha Wet, if that's what they call her. When Chernoh Bah, his own brother. And by the way, they are all in the same law firm. If then people they care about democracy, they care about the election, they care about APC coming to power in 2023, you know, can go ECSL and court to single lawyer by himself with your own law firm. Therefore, don't can go ECSL and court from the very point where they know see ECSL the register, then they do rotational registration, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here, and that. No correct machine. Some side away then go to center, camera no day. The machine know the work, the scanner they know the work. Alpha Jallo, you know, can go when I tell you law firm the law firm that he represents, that is working, is in partnership with the APC parliamentary leader. So the APC lawyer them, in fact, the law firm where Ade Macaulay is currently working. Ade Macaulay, where they fight for being secretary general, is part of that law firm. Now, this APC lawyer then, they not take case under that whole several for going to court for take action against ECSL. Say ECSL, they conduct registration for disenfranchised people and suppressed voters. What did Alpha Jallo do? Alpha Jallo take APC in a court. The interim committee, you say the interim committee, they know the function. They are so-called interim chairman, know the function well. By the way, they are all part of the problem. They are all the both factions. Now, factions the way disable the party. He took the APC to court to Fisher, say, may Fisher interpret the orders with the illegal orders. The illegal Judge Fisher's illegal order where he gives Chernoh Bah more power over the committee was given his own lawyer, his nominee, who is working in his own law firm. His law firm took the party to court to Fisher for interpretation of the APC order, but the law firm not take the ECSL na court. They don't even need for pay lawyer. They are lawyers, they get law firms, and they get other lawyers working under them. They have everything, they get secretaries. They will have filed papers to the court asking the court for put an injunction against ECSL from carrying out an illegal registration with disenfranchised people. And they never did that. In fact, they went quiet, they all hide, they all go under bed. In fact, they may even promote the idea, say, not just technical glitch. This is what they do. So they did not go to court to help the people, their supporters, their party to have their supporters and register, but they went to court to disable the party from further functioning and even defending. At the same time, they were lying that they have their members and supporters across registration centers. More than 85% of registration centers never had an APC agent. They no data of registration will take place. If you challenge them, ask them now, make them provide data when they challenge the ECSL record. In fact, now the very people involved in the talk say, we come for extension, we'll stop, we say the time is insufficient, and they suggest 2 days. They were the first people to announce 2 days extension. They are functioning. They were helping the ECSL to disenfranchise their own supporters. Why? Many of them know say they are young, they are between their 30s to their 55, between 35 to 55. Now the people in this way think say they are the younger generation in the APC who have overthrown their gerontocrats, the people that are the young mentors of the party. Then they don't use Madabio for arrest the party, disable the party, so they could prepare themselves to become the next government after Madabio in 2028. They do not care if Madabio is killing citizens, is suppressing now the ordinary people, and you are being used as pawns, as chickens, sacrifice chickens. They don't care about our lives. They never went to court. They're not ever going to ask these APC lawyers with all their law firms, from JFK to Abdullahi Conte to all of these people. By the way, if we talk about bad constitution, the people who wrote this constitution One of them is Abdullah Conte. The other one, in a parliament as illegal speaker, Abbas Bundu. They are now coming to talk about it. And in the past, from 1991 to now, they have not, even the little effort that was made under Chernoh Bah to revise the constitution and reduce the draconian provisions written into this constitution by these old lawyers at the time they were APC, old lawyers, Abbas Bundu and Abdullah Conte inclusive, the now effort to address the constitutional crisis and the bad provisions that they wrote into the law. They knew what they were doing in 1991, and they know what they are doing today. If they know what they do in 1991 as young men, middle-aged men, we just start their political career, start their lives, what will they not do at the twilight of their age? The time when they head to the grave now. The amount of time we then get for leave is far less than the amount of time where they don't live, when they write the 1991 Constitution. That 1991 Constitution is the danger that we face with today. Just one phrase where Chernoh Bah used the Supreme Executive Authority, now used for sack Sam Sumana and create a whole constitutional crisis with the support of these very people. Abdullah Conte, by the way, wrote an opinion against that. Now here they are, they sat down looking at the progressive destruction, the addition of more draconian actions and violation of that constitution. Now they say they're going to court. They never went to court because to defend the right of people to vote. So which one more important? The kind of election way for take members in a parliament, or the opportunity where citizens then get for exercise their franchise? We come to the country, what do we care about? Now we write for vote and choose who we vote for. So regardless of the kind of election that you are talking about, whether a constituency-based election, proportional representation, first past the post system, direct form of election that you talk about, it will be meaningless if the citizens who have the right to choose, who have the right to vote either for a party or for an individual, whether an independent candidate or party candidate or for party or for whatever system, if you're not getting the right for vote, what are you talking about? Are you talking about an election? No, you're talking about yourself. You're talking about yourself. You're talking about how you want to go to parliament. You're talking about whether you should be elected through a constituency-based election or you should be elected through a district block system through a party list. That's what you're talking about. You're not talking about the country. You're talking about yourself, members of parliament. You were not supposedly fighting in parliament because you are defending the interest of voters. Our interest as ordinary citizens is the right to vote, the franchise. And don't let it what we get. The opportunity for vote for one candidate or one party, or not for vote safe, but we get the right for vote. So, or vote against all of this by spoiling the ballot, say at the council, all the wire. So if you do not have the right to vote, the opportunity to vote is taken away from you. Which way you want me a lawyer for defend? The right of you, the individual, for choose whether you want to vote for Chernoh Bah or vote for Madabio or vote for Abdul Kabo or vote for JFK or vote for Abdullah Conte or the other lawyer they are, or then lawyer they are, then you right for decide which kind of system for carrying in parliament. So both the parliamentary action and the court action are the same. They are fighting for one thing. They are fighting for the form of electoral system. And that form of electoral system can either be, in the case of parliament, as we have it, a single member constituency election system, or an election that will return multiple members based on a percentage threshold decided by the party, which is what proportional representation is about. And proportional representation, you know, get nothing to do with the presidential election. It get to do with how we go elect members of parliament, whether not through single member or the party list, in this case, district block system, or other form of percentage that will be decided by the Electoral Commission. So when members of parliament are telling us, say, by supposedly standing up against proportional representation, whether they actually want it, is to their own benefit. They are basically trying to use that for telling us, say, they're not sell out. Because Madabio, it depends on these members of parliament. He has depended on them in this last 4 years for everything that has happened in the country. Now, the very members of parliament allow or pass a law we don't lead to two currencies in the country. That the very members of parliament also participate in the process of so-called census. They say they fight against census. Now the very members of parliament don't pass all these dangerous laws that we talk about, from the public elections law, we get the NIN and NCR, and the very members of parliament also pass the National Security Central Intelligence Act, we don't we in a law where they allow people for even raid the house without a warrant and do all that here. So these policies and programs, not for una, nothing the way actually they violate with democracy and with constitution. Yeah, so like I say, the members of parliament, if they really care about democracy and care about the constitution, they will not sit together and pass a public elections law. What we gonna know about the public elections law and what it is, and because we highlight and we report about it, we talk about it, and we make sure that everybody look at parliament really debate. Not to then tell not to then invite the country for look at parliament. We invited the whole world to look at parliament when it comes to the public elections bill. Now we've been telling them, we call the members of parliament and share, not the members of parliament be mobilizing and say, we call Abbas Buru, call Mada Bio and text them for say, make bring this law in a parliament. Now we, ordinary citizens, I am part of those people who did that, or at the forefront of the group of people who did that. Now we do them. And for that, what did we get? Insults from members of parliament. Insults, threatening remarks, and cost. Now we get from that. Mommy cost. So if you're members of parliament, we are really genuine and serious about the constitution. At that point, from that point, when Mada Bio, they want to introduce the public elections law, we contain the NCRA, we try for conflate, bring together the civil register and the voters register as one. We synchronize the civil register and the voters register, which is a violation of the constitutional right of citizens to vote. Now, therefore, don't take that action day. Chernoh in law firm, for don't take that action day to Alpha Wet. If they care about democracy and care about the constitution and care about the APC winning the next election, they would have taken an action. Because the APC cannot win an election without their voters voting the next election. That magic una use for win election. Now, when they even announce the provisional voter statistics, the APC not get any response other than telling their supporters, their own members, for convincing say they get more people that will register in Freetown and Western area against Southeast. How the voter numbers then Freetown don't beat past Malam O in census we say don't organize. That is not the question. That is not the question. The question is the question is simple. One, the number where ECSL announced, is it a number where reflective of the total number of people who have registered? No. ECSL on their own admission, they say they don't delete over 250,000 people where they think say underage or alleged say they're underage, or they also register 2 times, duplicate registration. The question is, how did they do that? Who are these people? In the first place, even the ACSL been tell we say, what to make first-time voters and nobody for register? They say the machine and program elect person for 17 and half. By next year, go down 18 years, the machine they reject you because the machine no programmer for that. They said that make first-time voter they encounter difficulty. The whole politician and the opposition, the whole press conference, all on that line. The press conference, in that press conference, you had Richard Conte, you had all these APC parliamentarians, Abdul Kagbo, and all them wire. They meeting at the press conference, APC, then call and cop. Femi Claudio School, they read a statement, talk about bring first-time voters and for can make demonstrations, say, for can talk about how then go with birth certificate and all that. So now, after registration, people that will get birth certificate, they're not able to register. They say they don't believe in birth certificate. People that will get 17 year plus, first-time voters, Sunday 18, Sunday 19, they're not able to register for vote, including elderly people. We show video of elderly people and say, I don't call, I've been vote last election, now they say they're not satisfied with me. They say, but bring birth certificate. You bring birth certificate, they say they don't trust this one, and the yellow one, and the blue one, and the green one. All this problem. After that, ECSL announced result and say over 250,000 voters have been removed from the provisional voters register on the allegation that they are underage or they have registered twice. Okay. Now the question for ECSL: how did underage people register How they manage for register the name when would have been the reject people there with the birth certificate. How did underage people, even people with birth certificate, when the first time the name will register? The one day without birth certificate, how they manage to register? Or when I be registered and they get birth certificate where you say then at 20 now after when I registered, I can't find out say no, they may lie. Where are the names of those people? Which part of the country they register? Which center register them? Would I register them? Because the registration, if an electoral official, electoral staff, member of the electoral commission register somebody will not qualify for register, a crime. There is a punishment for that. So both your members of parliament and the lawyer that now at the opposition, APC then come and get past 50 lawyers there with many law firms. They don't even need one kobo for hire a lawyer for going to court. They never went to court. They did not go to court to take the attorney general or seek interpretation, say would they take action, would they go to the Supreme Court for find out whether these laws, this Public Elections Act as a bill, violate the rights of citizens. Indeed, it violated the rights of citizens. They accepted that. But then still go fetted and pass the law, then tell we say they don't remove all the laws, all the provision in the bill, in the way violate people the right for vote. Where the registration happened, what didn't happen? We find out in a lie in the lie. At that point, then one pretends that ECSL just organized the election without reference to law. So if that is the case, why the APC lawyer then now where they say they go to court, they're not been going to court for stop the registration and force ECSL for register people correctly? They're not been doing because they do not care about winning the election. Many of these people have a 2028 agenda, whether they accept it or not. And me, I did the capacity for saying, because I'm not a party member, I care less about your political party fight. What I care about is the quality of democracy, the rule of law. We want quality governance, regardless of who is in power. If corruption continue, if bad governance continue, our work is going to continue. You can call us any kind of names. Today, yesterday, when I been saying we na SLPP we there for. Now when I say na APC now they find them very difficult. Then they say now this faction we there for, now this other faction we there for, now this other person we there for, now this other. To be honest with you, me not worry about those kinds of things. What I worry about is to ensure that things are working right. And in this case, your lawyers and your parliamentarians are actually engaged in a process for help Madabio. They are both helping each other. Now, Madabio knows with all of these things that I wouldn't talk about, Parliament's collaboration and complicity in the destruction of democracy under Madabio. Now that they go into election, these parliamentarians, many of them know if they go contest for symbols of their party now, they're not going to win. So the need for making them appear, say they're incredible. That means they pretend say they fight in the parliament. So then at the same one will tell, if we be not sell out, then go attack we, then go ban we from parliament. By the end of May, parliament in life done. What I mean life done, the term of office go done. By April now, end of April, make I just look at the calendar for a minute. Make una see what they talk about. Because where did they go and tell una say we don't ban Lahai Marines and that? No, their salaries are still running. And Albert do not get any power for do that because members of parliament are elected. They know that one day. So then they don't develop a situation where they will continue to fool the people. Now, the first sitting of parliament started on the 25th of April 2018. The state opening was on the 10th of May 2018. So the last sitting of parliament, according to their own calendar, is supposed to be on the 30th of April 2019. Then go to a prorogation when parliament will be actually closed by the 1st of May 2019. The last sitting. So we'd expect, say, going through this process by the 1st of May or thereabout, members of parliament will be ordinary citizens now. They will be looking for re-election back to parliament. So how can they enter into an election for parliament again with this kind of ugly representation we're going to talk about? Now, you can get 2019, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, now 2022 with the council. your members of parliament did not convene a committee to probe into all of the corruption that has been reported against Madabio. They never raised them for investigator. Not only that, your members of parliament approved many of the loan agreements. We don't increase the debt burden as a loan. They have approved all of the expenditure of the government for the last 5 years. Coming out right now, they are debating a new expenditure, the approval of a new appropriation act, and the reason why I haven't commented on it, I want to see what they will do with it. And they know that I have deliberately withheld my opinions on what they are doing and what is in the current proposed expenditure. But these are the same members of parliament where they try for say they go approve further expenditure, even though in the course of the last 1 year, the country has no audit service. There is no internal audit mechanism. Now they approve a budget for 2021. In that period, Nain, the president, dismiss, unconstitutionally suspend the Auditor General and one of the deputy auditors because they try to inspect how government they spend money. Members of parliament, they just tweet, pretend that they are against it. There be no say when that happened after 2 days, all man they forget. Now it's over a year. The audit service has no Auditor General that is legally appointed and went through parliament, scrutinized by parliament, and approved by parliament. You cannot have anyone heading the National Audit Service without approval by parliament, without being legally appointed. So the current acting Auditor General is acting illegally because he don't go over a year now, or more than a year since he started acting, since the removal of the substantive, the legally appointed Auditor General, legally approved Auditor General, was sent home. Members of parliament not ever raised an inquiry into it. They will tell you, say, no, the matter didn't court. They have the power to look into it. They also get the power for force the judiciary for function appropriately. That matter is being tossed around here and there. No basis. Up to now, the people don't even know why the Auditor General was sent, other than the fact that the government failed to live up to the transparency commitment. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament has not done anything. Members of Parliament in opposition, they have all the opposition parties never think a problem for a country forget an audit service without a legally appointed, scrutinized, and legally approved Auditor General. Abdul Aziz, who has been acting, worst of all, is not even qualified to serve as, even if he were to be appointed, even if Madabiu genuinely appoint Aziz, then take and go to Parliament. Parliament is supposed to reject him because Aziz is not a chartered accountant and is not qualified to, even Lara Telopia stated this in her papers. He said, nobody will not qualify for superintend the government audit, supposed to head the audit service. So basically, the individual currently serving as the acting Auditor General, they not get the qualification for serving that capacity. Even if they be appointed genuinely, Parliament is bound not to approve him because he not meet the criteria for serving that capacity. Now, this is the individual who submitted a report to Parliament as the financial year audit for 2020. Basically, Parliament received from Abdul Aziz a fake audit report. Parliament, however, we pointed out to Parliament that the report submitted to Parliament is fake. It does not contain even details of the audit trail. And Lara Taylor appears in the court papers where he filed it, talks say she did not been complete the audit when they remove her from office. So which means any report taken to Parliament cannot be seen as a report where Lara been not completely left and Aziz can sign her. And by auditing practice, you cannot sign an audit report that you did not superintend. You need to supervise, and you lead that. So if that is the question, it means the audit report submitted to Parliament for the last fiscal year was an audit report produced by Abdul Aziz. The question is, how was Aziz able to submit a report to Parliament within a month after he was appointed to be the acting auditor of the audit service? Your members of Parliament never talk this. Your lawyers have never raised this issue. They never can go, even the audit service or as a court say you cannot. They will have even raised impeachment proceedings against the president because Charles Magai wrote an opinion in which he said if the president dismiss or suspend the Auditor General without the due process, a violation of the Constitution, and the consequences for that is an impeachment. Your members of parliament have not said anything about it. Now, them very member of parliament here now, they go act concert in the parliament and say, then throw away benches, then broke flower vash them. Where them go, this flower vash, overnight said, them go take them, where it cost 200 leons. Or them go take them for free, can put and they say, we want to can the money, we wait till the camera, I don't can, scatter all thing in 5 minutes, on a hot the camera, I say all thing not poet. The following day, after that fight, then they go to parliament and pass the Political Parties Act, which limits. Now, if APC, the court scatter una so, members of APC will, if they say they want to register a new party for the next election, whether they satisfy with what they happen at APC, they cannot. So they not only don't hold una party, they also don't pass, strengthen the Political Parties Registration Commission, so nobody will form. They're not going to prevent anybody who will break away. Like how NGC, where you tell them in your movement, be done tire for Fet Madabio, na SLPP, they say no, then break away and go register NGC on the eve of the election, or C4C do the same thing. In this current situation with the current law, it's a way of making sure, even if it has scatter APC, then prevent them from getting a candidate of their own choice. People who are dissatisfied with an imposed candidate will not break away and form a new party. That is what that new law is doing. And it's done in association with your members of parliament. Why? They want to be the next government. They want to be the next government. They cannot be the next government if APC not lost the next election. They want to make sure, and why would I say APC? Because it's the majority, not to say we want APC or we like APC, me for one, but the fact of the matter is the two troubles that we have. So if one trouble don't country, people they say this trouble don't pass mark, it don't pass the trouble mark. So now try other trouble back. So in the two exchange of troubles, now the other people that we want for inherit this bad government, the architectural landscape from parliament, Jericho code them, where they want for, they don't arrest the young party and overthrow the young party leader. And now the emergency, who don't seize the party, so they can't take the executive, we hold on. We forbid the only way we will do this for make sure say anybody will be candidate, say, let's not we say be candidate now, the next candidate will fail. Now, elect get a candidate who I want. How are we going to vote for her? If we not get a voter ID card, we don't register, not just ordinary slip we get 250,000 people first and ordinary register. They don't register, and don't register, don't remove una. Now minus 250,000 votes from potentially opposition people. So how that 250,000 day when they don't delete from the register go able to vote? How the over 50 to 100,000 or more ECSL saying 50,000 people then picture not come? Not lie. Even if we assume 50,000, then 50,000, and how are we going to forget them picture, then voter ID card? If you're able to get them voters ID card, how are they able to vote? If they want to vote against Madabio, how are they going to vote against that? So now if we take 50,000 away, ECSL announced to 250,000, 300,000. Now how these 300,000 voters, the 300,000 small voters, Madabio, the winner win the last election, not be winner with almost that amount of voters. Kande Yumkela in vote, Samsumana in vote, and Kamarimba in vote, we add them together in only 300,000 in the last election. If you reach them as small, you will reach, if you pass in a small number. So basically, the time of talk, all the voters we vote for Yumkela, we vote for Samsumana, we vote for Kamarimba with the jail now. Then you combine them all, and that one, then delete so from the voter register. If they want the day we don't register, they don't get a voter ID card. You like when I get candidate na APC we when I want to vote for, when I will vote for her. Your members of parliament and your lawyers, do they care about that? That need for fight for me the one that they get the right for vote? Or now how for elect the members of parliament, either through the party list or the proportional representation? So why the fight in the parliament? Members of parliament want make their own supporter and believe say the talk say they don't sell out and the type of Madabio, now lie with the lie. Well, okay, we don't agree. We're not good parliamentarians. You have really represented the APC correctly. We don't agree. We would agree for that. Now, the question is, why did you bring in a law to disenfranchise your own supporters? Why would have been live giving a supporter and say, when they go for register, they're not going for use NIN, they're not going for use NCRA? Why? Well, that's what I represent good. That's what I be good parliamentarian for bring law, for participate in the passing of law and laws where they undermine the right of your own supporters, where they get for vote for una. Now that way, when I show una good and credible parliamentarians, why would I pass a law in a parliament where they prevent citizens from easily forming and registering and exercising their right to association in the easy way. Why would I decide for change the political parties law? Why would I pass in a parliament with no fight? Why would I decide for bring in a new law when I call National Security and Central Intelligence Act, where they create a new national security agency where you get the right now for going at somebody else and accuse you of subversion and seize your computer and seize your phone without even a warrant. So when a kind of power, even within a party, when are they against that, they will have not use anti-corruption against my young party people. So now when I go for use the security sector now for attack on young people. And so Sheikh Stephen take kill most of the people in the APC. That is how the progression towards one party state, when the Public Order Act and all of these anti-democratic legislations, the APC, the SLPP laid the architecture for the development of a one party state. The APC come and complete the process. They not only complete the process, people, the Democrats within the APC, who were opposed to that process of building the dictatorial state, they were all killed by the very APC people. So you can imagine the next government, even if it's APC, with the Cyber Law, the Political Parties Act, the Central Intelligence Act, with all of these bad laws then, where the members of parliament don't help Madabi for creating, and for themselves they maker. If they end up in power, these are the laws they are going to use against you, the very APC people, before they will cancel some of we we're not a part of our party. That is what they have done. They have basically created more dangerous laws and institutions where they undermine democracy by arming the next government, whether it's Madabio's second term or any other government will come after 2023. You don't get the enormous powers for Muslim citizens. They can use the Cyber Act, they can use the Central Intelligence, the National Security Central Intelligence Act, and all of these other laws there. Sexual Offences Act, where them pass, nine put Kamarimba in jail. So that is not to say, so there's a debate whether Kamarimba commit the offense or not commit the offense, but when government get law, they can use that anyhow, especially in a country like Sierra Leone, where the people with power determine what the law says. The crooked lawyers and the politicians who are their bosses and the judges they appoint determine what the law says, not what is written in the law. They don't care about evidence. They don't care about the correct interpretation of the law. They care about how they can insert their own opinion into the law. The law then becomes the opinion of those in power, their colleagues in the bar, their colleagues in the bench, and by extension, their friends and colleagues in parliament. And all of these crises, the people that will cause this crisis, build constitutions where they probably empower president, now the same people embark. One of them is in parliament, Abbas Bundu. The other one now don't join the APC lawyer and say they're going to court for address the problem where Abbas Bundu they don't create. The same people, these are the same people who some time ago, in 1991, and then back means they don't write this constitution. What would they do? Abbas, Timo will give the president some power. Abdullah, what do you think? No, I think Semo will add supreme executive authority. Now, that's why they call best lawyers. Basically, these are all professionals who have been trained outside of the country, in Cambridge, in Oxford, and other countries. They have gone back home. What have they contributed? They've destroyed the country. So I come back. This is a question, the conversation we have to have. How much of our PhD people they don't destroy the country? Not to how people with fake PhDs don't undermine the country. Now, how much of we are so-called real PhD people don't destroy the country? They are academics, professionals. Now you see them bobo there. Either people they have mentored, people who they have trained, or their own relatives, their cousins, children of their cousin, and now they add into a problem with dilemma. So basically, in summary, on the question of the proportional representation in the fight in parliament, is to the benefit of your members of parliament in the opposition. They want Madabio, by them together, they don't help Madabio for pass all the dangerous laws they have. Madabio has to rescue their image and their reputation. So they have to create a fight in parliament. And then they use that fight, they say, Abbas Bundu, fire 3 of them, then we will say now, if we be not collaborate, why they will suspend we? But not be suspended for 4 years. You have the choice to even say, we're not going to parliament safe. If we're not really committed, 10 way then dismiss 10 APC members. APC for say will not participate in parliamentary proceedings until the law is upheld, until the rule of law, until all them tear where they happen, they are done. They never did that. They went to parliament, cool and calm. In fact, not only that, the parliamentarian then they part of a process where the court overthrow the APC executive at all levels, from ward to district to constituency to national to regional to the diaspora, and take the party again to the very parliamentarian and their leader. Now, the very parliamentarian and their leader again went to court, and their own committee went to court, not to protect APC voters or their supporters, but they went to court to decide how this power, where this illegitimate judge give them for be interpreted. The judge not interpreted, the judge had more power, more rules and more orders. You see today, they don't announce the new, say you get 7 votes. You know, the list is already out. I would read the list before how they all share. And this, if they're not really, they will say a court. Yes, it's a court, but who is the judge? Who is the judge? These are the very judge who are the APC lawyers that have been challenged. Some of them have been challenged the legitimacy of this judge for practice law and Asalo. Then now when I come back, when I don't make her a judge, when they uphold the judgment. So you've not been honest to your members. The benefit of the action in parliament is about the SLPP helping their own allies, the compromised sector of the opposition in parliament, to redeem their image ahead of the elections. They need that. The same way that they help Mother Bill for making redeeming image. Now the same one, the same lawyer there, where you look at their own people and back outside of parliament. Now they organize the town hall. Remember that town hall? When they host, then call Mother Bill, say, can't defend you 3 years. Then parade all over there. What he lie? He lie, say, we're going to Japan. He meet Ernest Kuruma left that day. APCB left that day. Now he pay the debt and put on a door. Say, no, enter now. Pass the pay. That's what before you enter. Your members of parliament, nobody in the APC no challenger. Now we publish a lie, you lie. We publish record of Sierra Leone's history with Japan for the last 30 years. So even say over $200,000 was taken to Japan with Mother Bill and his wife. 1 cent they not bring back. Your parliamentarians have never investigated this because they know it's true. Instead, what do they do? Now for hide behind the scenes and use the civil society, use them company lawyer and for organize and host events, say, come a town hall, can defend yourself. And talk, say, after all, you're a president, you get right for spend 10 million. Now you're head of safety, they travel safe, you get right for higher plane. They said that. Check the people who organize the event. Now the very event, I didn't matter talk, say, you go for circular at Telopias. They ask her, do you sympathize with the attack on the Auditor General? He say, how about my wife? I know you're sorry for my wife when they tell and say the thief. My wife, they cry in a net. Of course, your wife is a recipient. Is a recipient of illegal recipient of public funds. She has no business dealing with 1 Leone. The members of parliament know. Some of the members, when we first published that article, some of the members of parliament in the opposition called me for say, we gave them the bank statements. They said that they did research in parliament to see if when they approved the budget, there was even a line in the budgetary estimate that says office of the president. No, it was hidden. They pretended they did not know about it. And even when we show them, what did they say? They advised the Anti-Corruption Commission, say, talk say, Kuruma be they also chief money. Instead of when they receive money, they haven't shown which evidence up to now when they say that they haven't shown any evidence. The only evidence out there about a first lady receiving money from the Consolidated Revenue Fund as budgetary allocations is evidence produced by the AfricanistPress, bank statements, no allegation. Bank statements that were even accepted by the First Lady herself. What did your members of parliament do? What did your lawyers do? They've been going to court? Then they fool una. And why I am able to say this, because they know that this is the fact. I am not beholden to any one of them. I don't care whether they're vexed, whether they're glad. That's their own business. And you're supporting them. You don't go for like somebody, you take poison, you drink her. For the person say, you know what, in this poison, when I don't put here, I don't think I poison this. Before you die, I will drink her. That kind of love there, some kind, even the Shakespeare never go write that kind of love story there. I believe Jesus and Muhammad no will advise you to do that. Anyway, I take a quick break and come back. Then I will talk about the second leg of this situation. I will sum up why this fight, when in a parliament, and Abbas Bundu, the talk they don't sack Lahai Mara and the 2 other APC MP, they're good for the APC MP than even the SLPP. Then from there, I will talk about why JFK in your lawsuit and the parliament are the same thing. The Mother Bill and the opposition, they benefit from, not to the country and the road self. Yes, thank you very much. We don't do the first leg of the conversation, which is why I think the supposed the riot in Parliament is not. By the way, the supposed riot in Parliament is not. It's not different from the riot of August 10. Not the same thing. Not the same chaos. The August 10 thing happened at the same time when we're going to talk about the voter registration. They start a few weeks before the voter registration start, and it only happened at areas of the country where voters have been obviously disenfranchised, where NIN was used, NCRA was used to frustrate people from registering. And we said that before August 10 happened. So while they are still, we still investigate August 10, but I just want to draw that parallel, the quick in passing, make una understand. On the eve of the exhibition, the exhibition of the voters register, nine parliamentarians and hip fet in a parliament. At the same time again, Alpha West then Fisher passed judgment for say they don't release new orders. So they made you, the APC supporters, have something to talk about instead of to collectively supervise the exhibition and begin highlight the infractions, these omissions of names and omissions of data. Now we say again, this is why this time we decide, when I notice we decide for copyright almost every video that we took, that our people, our volunteers took on the ground for show say. Part of the reason many of your APC supporters and members or leaders in the transition committee and otherwise did not care about the omission of names. Then up to now, if a lawyer they really care about when members of parliament care, they will have invited ECSL to parliament regarding the omission of names long since. From September, they forbidden one. Or they forbidden one a few weeks ago. We talk on section 86, subsection 2 of the Constitution, empower members of parliament. 20%. It's just like 20% members of parliament. 20% of all members of parliament, then they request an emergency meeting on any pertinent question. Very important to the speaker. The speaker is obligated under the circumstances to convene the meeting within a period not exceeding 2 weeks. The APC alone get twice that number. They don't need for lobby any other parliamentarian. They can request that. There's no record of them requesting that. So instead of a go fet in a parliament and say we don't throw a bench here and make so, they will have submitted a request for an emergency meeting on these questions, but they never did because they know say the law for don't force about Bundu for me to talk about that. What did they do? They say the whole consultative meeting. This was NGC the whole they called civil society. Next thing we see, civil society write statements and then they in favor of proportional representation. This statement is there, issued by IGR and all of the civil society that are led by people who we know are SLPP members. IGR, with me, I know you talk about it as civil society because IGR, Andrew Valley, is a member of the SLPP. He was head of the Kadisise campaign team in 2012. Everybody knows I've been part of Kadisise campaign group. So he's heading IGR. SLPP interested to represent. These are the people who make a consultation. So what am I saying? The proportional representation is even to the benefit of smaller parties in the real sense of the word. Not the real sense of the word. There is no way, there is every likelihood that the NGC and many of them smaller parties will not be able to retain the current membership representation they have in parliament in a single member constituency election. Impossible. Including even Yom Kaila, it's possible he's not going to be elected again, re-elected on a single member constituency in the next election. In the real sense, people will be able to vote. The same thing for the C4C. It happened to Charles Magai. 2007, the PMDC had more members in parliament from the southeast. When the SLPP recover from the crisis of them losing the election and realize they have an interest in fighting to get back to power, by that election, all of the MPs all of the MPs representing PMDC lost to the SLPP in 2012. You see, even you go ask Honorable Sheka Samai, who is now an independent member of parliament. He went to parliament on a PMDC ticket in the parliament of 2007. He went to parliament for the first time, or he went to parliament in 2007 under a PMDC ticket. And the PMDC was a breakaway faction of the SLPP. By 2012, when the elect Madabiwe failed for win the presidential election, one of the things that the SLPP succeeded to do was to recover all of the lost seats in parliament. Honorable Shaka Samai only returned to went out of parliament as a consequence of that. And a narrowly small vote, let me beat with. He interpreted it to mean some kind of rigging. But if in a proportional representation, probably by that percentage of vote, he would have ended up in parliament too as an independent member. But now he's in parliament as an independent member of parliament. So now they are even trying to say that proportional representation, then they tweak the thing for maybe address members of parliament and we're going to parliament, allow independent members of parliament to compete. You see the crooked nature. So what will it do? We don't talk about last time. What will proportional representation do if the current members of parliament succeed for take over their party, then get the secretariat, and then get by the way, one of them candidate for where they compete for Secretary General. Now, Ade Macaulay works in the law firm with Alpha Web and Terry Kodem and all of that. If they're really interested in electoral democracy and real representation and the victory of the APC in the next election, before even go join case, Ade Macaulay sign on the case with Wara and Abdullahi Conte and JFK. Therefore, don't take case action long since they will go to court and stop ECSL for disenfranchised people. They never did that. But they want to be seen to be very credible. They want to be seen. Now that make the suspend where Abbas Bundu say don't suspend Lahai Marai in two company there. Now help them. Because now they will go to the APC people and talk, say, you know what thing. You see, they were fed for we. They were fed for we at the party. Now able Madabio, now dangerous possible. We just go for can together. Now the party interest will for. These things have to be said. They have to be identified. But when you put that argument there against all of the things that don't happen in parliament, so even this law, when they talk about say the 524, they not suspend, I want to be the fed for where they suspend. Not a creator. Because if you had not encouraged debate around a new elections law, there will have been no question of proportional representation. And Madabio been talking at the town hall, when at the very, some of them are we organize a town hall that we are there. We are opposition supporters, opposition sympathizers. We organized the town hall in April 2021. That is where he first mentioned when he was asked by Umaru around proportional representation, say yes, he gave for canvass the members of parliament for making them see. So which means few months after that, even the so-called public debate around proportional representation was also organized by the very civil society people there. In the same town hall, defending the same question of trying to rationalize the use of proportional representation. So make the members of parliament not pretend to say they're opposed to proportional representation. It's for them. It has nothing to do with presidential election. It has to do with how they will shape the percentage representation in parliament. How they will allow smaller parties and back for get inside. By the way, these smaller parties are all part of COP. Then a different conversation. So there is no difference between members of parliament standing up in parliament and saying they want end the court action. In the case of parliament, Abbas Bundu in suspension of the members of parliament, help you don't help them. It help them make them talk, say this 4 year, all who not represent well, when they say we don't sell out, to not stand against corruption, not stand against this, the afraid will be afraid. If we been taking this action, if we don't kick you out of parliament. But now, in a few months left, like they say not suspend, we not a real suspension, really. They're not getting nothing for lose again because now it's of their own interest now to not even be in parliament and begin to get canvas now support for executive position and then party and try for fight for making them get into the next parliament again for the next 5 years. And they will not care if Madabio is the next president because then get new law will not increase their benefit, increase their salaries, increase their condition of service. So they will not suffer. They will not suffer. They will enjoy more in the next parliament than this current parliament. That's why they don't program the welfare bill for parliamentarians. Now, on the question of what in the court action, so the parliamentary fight is it benefit the opposition. How it benefit now the government? By taking that action to the court, imagine it, more people say the matter in a court. We have seen in the court action where they can go again. In fact, when we look at the drafts of the court papers, because we don't even see the final copies there, me not see me. I have asked the lawyers who have taken this matter to court to give me copies of the papers they have filed. What they have received now drafts of the copies and a supposed electronic receipt where they say that the receipt and the way they give them after they file the case. We are still in the process of looking for the final copies, the final paper with them file. The court has not provided that to us. But from the draft papers, if we speak to that end receipt, it shows that the APC will then go to court. Now Abdul Kagbo, member of parliament, and make us see the councillor. Now they're the plaintiff. So basically, Abdul Kagbo, now the plaintiffs in the matter that was filed to court on the question of proportional representation. Make sure I read the names and correctly the name of the name of the other councillor, some Catherine or something. Make sure say now them file paper. So JFK basically now they represent Abdul Kabo and this other APC councillor, woman councillor, where they file papers against so-called proportional representation, represented by Joseph Kamara and the other APC lawyers with a list at the thing. So let us assume for one that the Supreme Court really sit down, a genuine case, more in a real case, the Supreme Court sit down on this case. And they look at it and they say, okay, now because of the noise we don't get, and we want to make the members of parliament here appear credible, the Supreme Court gave a rule, pass a verdict, say, indeed, we don't find out, say, proportional representation is unconstitutional. They're not supposed to use that because the conditions we require the use of proportional representation do not exist. So it appears, say, the lawyer that we're going to court and don't win. Yes, we all know the move itself is unconstitutional. We know that. So a Supreme Court panel rule against that. Okay, so it's a celebration. We say, oh, we members of parliament, we lawyer, they don't try. They don't can go court action against proposal. We don't make matter bill, we don't force her. If that happens, it's still not free enough from the question. Why did you not take ECSL to court for making the court also pass an injunction on the question of the illegal way in which ECSL has been operating, including the question of the deletion of names from the voters register, who will not scrutinize up to now. Also, if the Supreme Court, if a Supreme Court decision against proportional representation is passed, now Madabio the benefit. Why? It will even free up Madabio from the accusation that he don't use the courts against opposition for the past 10 weeks under power. Then it will appear the judiciary is independent. And the truth is, the judiciary is independent. No. The judiciary has actually been used as a weapon against democratic organizations of the country, against political parties, against ordinary citizens. The same judiciary we put on trial somebody who is mentally challenged, blacker. So if the Supreme Court verdict is passed now, then we say, see, Trade, when Sam Sumana and Minsaka, the Supreme Court, being ruled in favor of an exclusion. See, Madabio not getting interested in proportional representation. In fact, he go happy for make the Supreme Court rule against proportional representation, because then he go say, I don't get no hands in the judiciary. They don't even pass verdict against me, which is different from a verdict that was passed when they sacked Sam Sumana. And what will it do? If the very court now, it will also free this thing about this mercenary judge that's used by the courts, Fisher, who has been used by the courts to destroy opposition party or opposition politics in the country. So in a situation where Fisher will now pass a verdict against any opposition politician, especially in this case Samura Kamara, say without evidence, say guilty of any charges of corruption, then there's no way you, the APC people, are going to complain against that, because the court don't also say we're right against proportional representation, but we're wrong in this case. So you have to calculate all of these things and under balance. If your members of parliament are really serious about democracy, they are really serious about the constitution, they are really serious about free and fair elections, the issues are there that are genuine, that affect voters, that affect their supporters, that affect the country. And those issues are the right of people to vote, to participate in the elections. They will not pass a law in parliament that would disenfranchise people from participating. We don't talk, say, the only way we might be one for use for rogue election are two methods, two technique. One, for use law for suppress people from voting, people that we believe, say, then there are areas where we don't consider, say, now opposition strongholds. That we don't say it don't happen. The second thing we say, for making use the court for exclude members of the opposition where they believe say if they contest against them, they go beat at the election. And that go use corruption cases, and then when they want to see the COI, when I see this current chancery case, we don't talk about, say there is no evidence. We will publish, so don't you say there is no evidence. The story will publish, the evidence will publish, and the case will then get a two different things. We don't talk about even the complicity of the opposition in the matter. We don't talk about. We'll go for a whole special conversation on that regarding the entire case itself and how the opposition is heavily involved in it. So, voter suppression and candidate exclusion. The voter suppression is what Parliament helped to do by passing the law. Now, the court will also help Madabio in the process of excluding. And in this case, the major threat to Madabio, as we see it, what we don't see in the public domain, is the APC's presidential candidate of 2018. In last 2018 elections, Madabio only edged him with less than 2% of the vote on both rounds. Now, 5 years later, you put empty ballot box today, you put Madabio now in a free and fair contest, the empty ballot box is going to beat Madabio. And within the APC and nationally, the only politician that has posed a significant mobilization challenge, population challenge in terms of gathering supporters that we hear and see is basically Samura Kamara, who has been out there. Now, you, the APC, can argue, say, no, not to get the support of APC, that is your own. But what we're talking about is this. And both within the APC and the SL, for example, when I go to New York, I release a video and talk about the state of the building in New York and the permits. The people that will respond to the video. Now, APC supporters, APC members, and the NGC, now they begin challenging the evidence. They say, why we not highlight $2 million will be lost on the APC term regarding the building? Actually, if you have the evidence, publish it, the evidence. The evidence what we get now, we don't publish. You cannot expect me to publish evidence of your own accusation. I publish the evidence that is in front of me. It just had like a couple, so one or two, even APC contact, hey, so Sabura be not, I said, no, go, not take a flag bearer fight here now. Don't bring it to me. I'm dealing with the evidence in front of me. And the evidence in front of me is that close to $5 million were transferred in 2019 to New York to renovate the embassy. And the question is, if there be a problem left over by the APC, the money for that renovation has been stolen, why did Madabio not arrest Samura until the time when we publish the story? And the public story will publish, will say, Madabio, the money that sent there, for the renovate building, so you go hold somebody who will be not left power. Not to be your own case. Now the opposition says everyone that will happen. They advise that. Because they've been looking for that. The same way when they look for evidence for talk about it, these people went as far as paying money to public relations agency, media institutions try for fair way for make documentary on Sarah Rutile for manufacture evidence. They don't have that. They don't have that. With all the COI, when I don't see bank statement of any government ministry or institution with all the accusations, none. Now, when it comes to the question of verification of a voters register and all of that, what did we hear? The same Attorney General's office and all of the people had a full list of 30 people whose houses have been seized and all of that. It's calculated. So, a court verdict, assuming that this court, a Supreme Court will rule against proportional representation, where really there is no legitimate basis for proportional representation if you're not bring this law, that's for the benefit of Madabio. It will free the judiciary from this evidence, massive evidence of the judiciary being a tool of the executive branch in association with its rogue parliamentary friends for muzzle opposition in the country. It will also free the Anti-Corruption Commission from this talk, we don't talk, say these are the institutional framework of a captured state. So both the people in the opposition and the ruling party, now they come together so for try for rescue each other. This is what we call the dilemma. It's institutional dilemma. Parliament, the judiciary, the executive branch, they have all lost legitimacy and credibility. And the officials within these institutions, no, say we cannot go into an election with this credibility crisis. The dilemma we then face now, how to make sure that people in a salon trust Madabio, trust the opposition leaders, trust the institutions of the country. The institutions and these leaders will definitely have to organize programs and activities to make sure that their bases, the APC base, the SLPP base, the general mass of the country that cannot read or that do not have the analytical critical analysis, when we infuse critical analysis into this kind of developments and understanding. You love your party people, you love your parties, you love these politicians, they are your neighbors, they are your friends, they are your relatives. Some of us, we decided that our relationships with individuals, our school friends, the one that we're going to school with today, who we don't sit down, work out with party, we been say we not them party then. Some of them don't call we, they don't call we names. We say, okay, no problem, but the two we'll talk. And this, I want to assure you, is my own interpretation of the events in the country. And at the same, as a journalist and a significant actor too, we interact with them people there over time, across time in the last 20 years at least, looking at it very closely. My interest here is to make sure if Madabio is going to get a second term, let him get a second term on a free and fair election. If your members of parliament want to be elected to parliament, let them be elected on a free and fair election. If una young party people that want for fight for be flag bearers in them party, make them able to come out and compete on a plain and open democratic arrangement. That's how you survive the democratic competition at your party. You survive the national democratic competition in a clean way. We know that when you go to power, you are really a truly democratically elected leader. So when they engage you, we know they question you entrance legitimacy, we they question you performance legitimacy. How has the genuinely elected process that took you to power, that position that you got genuinely, you have been able to use it. But we cannot have the headache of having to start with the process through which rogue politicians get to power and then begin to talk about what they will do with power. Because if you thief for going to power, you thief your way to power, you will thief back when you didn't power. That's obvious. If you cannot be democratically elected in your parties, then you will not be democratically elected in the national politics. And if you are not democratically elected, you get to power, you will be just a common rogue, not just a common bandit with power. That's like arming, that's like giving a criminal political power with soldiers, with guns, with jails, with courts, and all of that. That's what you will have. You cannot have thieves and crooked politicians still in power in their parties, still in power at the national level, and then expect them to do good. No. What you will have is a criminal president who has been empowered with soldiers and police officers, with courts and jails, and all of the paraphernalia of state power. What will they not do? They will not stop at anything, because God knows where will stop them now at that level. This is what we are against. We want to have a country where people with different voices, different views, different opinions will be able to live in peace, will be able to exercise their right to free speech, their right to association, their right to citizenship without hindrance, without fear. Now that we call for. That we aspire for. And your members of parliament have really created a more dangerous environment. By 2011 to 2012, all of the country were hopeful that the dangerous provisions written into the constitution by Abbas Bundu, Abdullahi Conte, and others will be addressed by a constitutional review process. These are the legacy of the APC dictatorship. The 1991 constitution, which we call a multi-party constitution, we only appreciated it because it allowed for the existence of more than one party. But it is not a democratic constitution. It's a constitution that gives enormous powers to an executive presidency, the same way the Republican Constitution did, the same way the one party. So the spirit of the one party constitution, the dictatorial spirit of the one party constitution is still wrapped into the 1991 constitution, which is why Ernest Koroma was able to dismiss Sam Sumana. And the courts will sit down and say yes, because it's a matter of opinion. The law is the opinion of those in power. Now, in 2011, in 2012, the entire country mobilized to have their aspiration for a new democratic society written as part of the constitutional review process. The APC parliamentarians and the APC leadership, after all that process, they sit down, they take the constitutional review and the recommendations, they sat on it. Now, Madabio came to power in 2018, they now use parliament and the parliamentary power, say that legacy, that will be decided for make we democratize the environment, the constitutional review, make we come with a new constitution. No, they started Now then they are, they say they don't pass gender act and gender bill for include women in participation. No, open up the space. Every human being will be able to compete fairly. But what did they do? In the last 4 years, they don't pass more secondary laws then, more additional laws then. We don't not only strengthen the anti-democratic spirit of it, don't make the constitution and whosoever within a power now, you don't armor with more powers and more laws there for muzzle everybody in the country. And that's what we fear. Now with a cyber act, with a national security central intelligence act, with a, a tedious public elections law, with a, a all of these other dangerous laws, then we will talk about now. We don't list them over time, including the fact that we get a new currency law. We don't introduce two new currencies. What have waiting the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive don't do in these 4 years? They have collectively, as the three arms of government and the people within them, created the architecture of a dictatorial state in the future. They don't make it impossible for somebody like me or other people in the opposition who are democratically minded, other people, even within the ruling party who are democratically minded, to be able to exercise their right to association, their constitutional rights, and their God-given human rights. That they don't do. It is not something that's going to affect me alone. It's going to affect generations. The legacy of the one-party dictatorship of the APC under Sheikh Stephen, now they deal with so today. That was in 1978. Almost 40 years later, we're still dealing with these ghosts of terror, of a terroristic state. Now, over 40 years later, the very politicians have now created the architecture of a more dangerous state that will take us. And remember, they're in their 30s, their 50s. And this is supposed to be the internet generation, the technological generation, professionals, lawyers, bankers, academics, so-called international bureaucrats. They superintended and supervised this process because they have a dummy, a shoulder, ex-shoulder, untrained shoulder. Because by 2012, the APC session talks about not a good officer, not a brigadier. The challenge is brigadier title. Basically, the challenge even his qualification as an officer, which is the only thing he has done in his life to be a military man. So now, ending up at the level of the state, they have used that incompetence and ignorance on the part of the presidency to create this dangerous architecture. And it's through this. So when they tell you they are going to court, they are basically trying to help the government to look good. When they tell you they are fighting in parliament, they've been dismissed, the parliament and the ruling party is helping the opposition to look good. That they don't do. So I want to sign off here because and thank everybody that has paid attention to this conversation. I see we get an appreciable audience. We'll continue this conversation. And don't forget, we cannot have democracy without good institutions. We cannot have democracy without the independence of the three arms of government, separation of powers, the rule of law. And this is not magic. We have to have men and women who are committed, generally committed to a country to do this. So I want to thank you and for today, and see you next week. Until then, make we begin look at the country and the future beyond these politicians and beyond these parties. If not, at the tell you now, we sow the seeds of our own destruction, and that is what we're concerned about. It's about the soul and the future of Sierra Leone, the peace of the country. See you next week.
All right, guys. Of course, that's our brother there, our brother AfricanistPress. So, I'm just gonna leave it right here, guys. I'm still celebrating my son's birthday, but I'd be one for let me share this with you guys and take it from there. So, hope everybody. I'm sorry you guys are just joining me now, and but we have to leave this here right now, and we'll take it from there. But hopefully, I'll see you guys on Monday, if anything, and we'll do a live. We'll talk about the issues there, that are actually happening. So, thank everybody. Have a good weekend, guys. Take care of yourselves, and like always, we want to appreciate you guys for sharing these lives. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're on Facebook, make sure you follow me on Facebook. Go on Twitter, follow me on Twitter as well. There's a lot of information that you can learn from that I put on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, it's not an excuse. You have to have a Twitter account. Everybody gets a Twitter account. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. This is what a Twitter account looks like, so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. But so like this is my Twitter page. It's very important that you guys at least try to get on Twitter
Having
and
walls
create your
is
own
pretty
accounts for
cheap.
yourselves so you can participate.
I say you're
You know,
pretty good.
it's a lot of things
Eh?
out there, guys. A lot of
Who's that?
information.
Who's that?
Let us
That's me,
continue
that's
the
me,
fight.
that's me,
Let us
brother.
continue to stay
Oh,
patriotic.
you almost got
If you don't take
beamed,
anything,
cousin.
Section 13B of the
Guys,
Constitution makes it very clear.
couldn't beat
It
me if
says
I was
every
standing.
citizen shall cultivate a sense of nationalism and patriotism, and that is what we want to point out to you guys. We have to put our country over everything else. Salon ain't can force. Salon ain't for put over everything, your political party, your tribe, your regions, and all that stuff. If you do that, we're gonna have a wonderful country. But anyways, guys, I gotta go. So again, thank you every one of you. Appreciate you. Go back and watch the live. Listen again attentively. Take notes. Participate in these conversations. Now, one great salon we get for a lot of us who are in the diaspora. Eventually, we want to go back home. But what do we go back home to? Is it going to be corruption as the status quo continues, the suffering of our people continues? Is that what we're going to go to? So those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves, and that is why it's very crucial, and that is why it's very important that we continue to stand up and speak up about these things. It's not easy, but we want to thank you guys for everything, and we'll leave it there. Again, remember I played this video for my President Kuruma. The election of 2023 is going to be protected, but what happens if the people cannot even vote? That is why we want these opposition leaders in parliament and all of that stuff for them to stand up now and ensure the rights of the people, that they go register them people there. We see the registration process was a flop. We saw the verification process was absolute garbage. We've seen all of that stuff. We want these guys to challenge the process, but up till today, since the day they get that nonsense fed in the parliament, the leader of the opposition has not said a word. Till to this day, not talking nothing. All the suffer people in the suffer. We see school picking and they go put up verification posters there. Till to this day, nobody has said nothing. It is our responsibility, guys. We have to call them out for who they are. We want us as democracy that is going to work for everybody. We tired for seeing people in the suffer, young girl in the broke stone for survive. Enough is enough. Picking for them foot broke, bone passy rotting. We see it on social media, we ala before the government will come and take care. That has to stop. It starts with the parliaments because they are the supreme legislative authority. And then get the responsibility for check the government and make sure say the government not do the nonsense way they do. Not for go and fet, make noise, bakuna, fet na parliament. No, it's about indicting people, inviting them to parliament. Let us the people know, communicate with the people. Let them tell me what they do. Mohamed Kanawe call it for subject them to parliament for summon them. Let them write a letter say we invite you. Let Mohamed Kanawe call it no come. Let Cherikoko use section 86 to of the constitution. Let Mohamed Kanawe call it no show up at the parliaments. We the people know members of parliament should engage the community at the community level. I must member of parliament when I go all town hall meetings them for educate and sensitize the people them. That is why I'm big on civic education. That is the key. Civic education. That is what we need. We need communication in politics. Politics is a place for play dirty game, witchcraft spirit. Then come out and speak openly to the people. That is what we advocated for. That is what we're asking for. That is what we need in Sierra Leone until we get that kind of political system where the politicians will come out and speak to the people. I'm telling you, we're not going anywhere. But the politicians, then they play games behind the doors. Everybody behind the scene. Everybody's playing games behind the scene. Not to come out and speak up on behalf of the people, engage with the people, educate the people, get the people involved in the process so the people know along the way everything that they're doing. They should engage the people. That is how we go get a democracy that fosters and work. Now you make America be what TBD like today. It is not overnight, not a magic. Europe, then countries there, they all be what they be today. It is not magic. It is the fact that they engage communities, they engage the people, bring the problems to the people. Now, so we don't do. The registration on a suffer, on a strain, they make them use NIN, the same parliament we pass out. Now, I see a young lady when killed, but I don't do a real where I put out on a go see him. That is why we have to. The parliament is where the problem starts. Until we get the parliamentarians, they're ready for work for the people. Not for fair to make rudeness, set a bad example for picking. And that is not what we're asking for. Physical altercations. No, we want to see procedures. There are procedures within parliament. We want to see how they relate to the people we elect una. We can't go inside parliament. When something doesn't go right, you come back to the people, engage the people. Members of parliament should call for protest. Now, if organize protest, they're in front of the protest, supervise the protest. That is what they're there for. If they believe that Marabio is unconstitutional, and they do the wrong things, then members of parliament should lead the protest in front of the people. Stand before the people. When they arrest people, go stand up and protect the people. Engage the people. Town hall meetings. Let me see them. Una see them? Members of parliament. Una see them. They go so person see Honorable Abdul Kagbo. Most of them go on radio, engage the people, go to the community, organize town hall, big meeting them, let the people all come, can't tell them, say, so thing they happy in the parliament, we're not happy, we're not glad. Most of them they do. It's not a lot of them. But guys, I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Don't forget, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share these lives. and don't continue for educate, because the more people we reach, the better for we. The more people we reach, the better. That is what we're building together. We're building that fort. And like I said the other day, guys, of course, like I told you guys, this is my pen, and I'm putting these pens together shortly when I go for see them. This time, my pen now, Leona, know where we're going, and so you guys would at some point follow. But this is my pen right here. You guys would I'll get for put it on the page, and so when I go for buy them, everybody for buy. I get a few hundreds of them. We go for start for raise money for the 2028 political campaign. When I all know, so we give Dr. Samura Kamara a chance for 2023, so they will watch Dr. Samura Kamara, which get for happen. If Dr. Samura Kamara, play by the rules of the people, then it's a different ball game. But with the trust, say he's going to be the president and he will save the people of Sierra Leone, and then we'll take it from there. But I love you guys. Take care of yourselves, right? Okay. And thank you guys. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes to my son. I appreciate you, Memona, too. Thank you, everybody. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves. When I go back and watch the live, pick out some points, them, you take it from there. Bye-bye, everybody. All right.